Hi, this is Gabe from FluentForever.com. At this point, we've gone through all the sounds of German. If you're using one of my pronunciation trainers, it's going to take you through all of these sounds, train your ears to hear them more accurately, and then teach you the spellings that produce them. Then it will push all that data into your long-term memory. And if you're not, that's fine too. I made these videos to give you a passing familiarity with all the sounds of German, so that when you study them in depth later, they're going to feel more familiar, and that'll make them easier to learn. In either case, I want to go over three peculiarities of German that will make the spelling system a little more sensible. We'll begin with word stress. German, just like English, stresses certain syllables more than others. In English, for instance, there's a pretty big difference between incense and incense. In any multisyllabic words, stress is a pretty key element. We say element, for instance, not element or element, and German does the same thing. And you'll see this in IPA with a little quotation mark looking thing which shows up right before a stressed syllable. So this word is übersetzen, and the one on the right is übersetzen. Occasionally you'll see the same little quotation mark thingy, but on the bottom. Here, for instance, we have the German word for signpost, Wegweiser. The first syllable is accented, but the second one also has a mark. So what's going on here? In this case, German likes to assemble words out of smaller words. It turns them into kind of word elements. This word, for instance, is constructed out of Weg and Weiser. And when you stick these two word elements together, they hold on to their original stress patterns. Weg is still Weg, and Weiser is still Weiser. But one word, its stress will stick out over all the others. In this case, Weg wins the stress game, turning the word into Wegweiser. This can actually get ridiculous. Mark Twain famously said that some German words are so long they have perspective. The current winner in the German language is Rindfleischetikettierungsüberwachungsaufgabenübertragungsgesetz, which is the name of a law governing the labeling of raw beef. Generally, you won't need to deal with words this ridiculous, but you will need to deal with smaller compound words. Words like Wegweiser and Waschmaschine, words that have one main stress, say wasch, and one or more secondary stresses, like the E sound in Maschine. So that's that for stress. Next up, let's talk a little bit about voiced and unvoiced consonants. The concept of voicing is about whether your vocal cords are doing anything when you say a consonant. So if you were to compare s and z with your finger or your hand on your throat, you can feel buzzing in your vocal cords on z and nothing on s. Z is referred to as a voiced consonant, and s is unvoiced. I mention this here because when a voiced consonant, like d, z, b, v, and g, shows up at the end of a German word, when it is final in that word, it turns into an unvoiced consonant, t, s, p, f, and k. So a German will pronounce this word, for instance, as Hand, with a t sound at the end. This applies also to consonant clusters. So if you have two consonants at the end of a word, like in montags, then all of those consonants, both of those consonants in this case, become unvoiced. So it's montags with a x at the end, a ks. This is a thing you get used to pretty quickly in German, but there is a tricky part, and that's when you deal with compound words. German words basically never change how they sound, even when they're just word elements jammed into the middle of a compound. We've actually already encountered this in Wegweiser. It's not Wegweiser with a G, it's Wegweiser with a K sound in the middle. Weg. Note that you'll sometimes encounter a kind of stop in the middle of a word. So a combination like rund with a T at the end and Dorf together can show up either as Runddorf with an audible T in the middle if you're pronouncing it really carefully, or more often you'll just stop with your tongue in the T position for a moment. Runddorf, Runddorf. And that's basically it for voicing. It can be tricky at times because you won't always know whether a new word is a compound or not. This word, for instance, is pronounced wieder with just a D sound because it's not a compound. And those double Ds right in the middle are pronounced normally. They're voiced. Recognizing whether you're looking at a single word or compound word, that's a skill that gets easier the more vocabulary you learn, and you will pick it up eventually. And so with that, let's move on to our last topic, which is vowel length. German makes an audible distinction between long vowels, say a as an as, and short ones, a as an as. You'll see this indicated in IPA using a colon-like symbol, which tells you to lengthen the vowel that comes right before it. There is an opera singer trick to pronouncing these vowels well, and that trick is to basically ignore the vowels altogether and pay attention to the consonants instead. If you want to make the a and as short, just go to the consonants early and stay on them a bit longer. As. So, how do you remember which vowels are long and which are short? Well, there's a trick to that too. Nearly all short German vowels are followed by 2 or more consonants. Bitte, Hölle, Docht. And most long German vowels are followed by 1 or fewer consonants. Bote, Dieb, Fee. The only extra weirdness to remember is that H, the letter H, acts as a vowel lengthener. If you see an H after a vowel, like in Ehe, Aale, and Windmühle, you can basically be sure that that vowel is going to be long. And that is basically it for German. To recap a bit, we talked about word stress, the difference between übersetzen and übersetzen, and how German compound words keep the stress patterns of their component words, Weg and Weise, for instance, but have one word element that sticks out over all the others. So it's Wegweise and not Wegweise in this case. Then we dealt with voiced and unvoiced consonants and how German turns voiced consonants like d, z, b, v, and g into unvoiced ones like t, s, p, f, and k when they show up at the end of a word, which shows up like in Hand and Montags, or at the end of a word element in a compound word, like in Wegweise, Runddorf. And last, we dealt with vowel length, and how German vowels are short when they come before 2 or more consonants, like in Bitte, Hölle, and Docht, and that you pronounce them accurately by going quickly to the consonants and kind of lingering there a bit. And that German long vowels come before 1 or fewer consonants, as in Dieb or Fee, or before H's, like in Aale or Windmühle. And that is all for German. If you need a hand in memorizing all this stuff and training your ears to hear it, then grab a German trainer from my website, linked below. You'll have all this memorized within a couple of weeks. Hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.